Right, in this video, we're going to go over how the membrane is structured and how this contributes to the work that it does in the cell. Prior to this, we had our bubble lab where we explored the properties of lipids and membranes, and we modeled what a membrane does and how a membrane behaves by looking at bubbles, which are made of similar molecules. Okay, so our guiding question today is, how does membrane structure impact its function? Another way to put this would be, how does the way that a membrane is built affect how it works? Okay. So if you look at a membrane a little up close here, you will see that it's not just a uniform double layer of phospholipids. There are actually several different components included in the membrane, and they kind of float around, kind of like the string and the straws, all those things did in the bubble. So let's take a look at these. First of all, we have, excuse me, we have proteins. Proteins are another one of our macromolecules, and these guys are embedded often in the membrane, and these play an important role because they help move some materials across the membranes. Some proteins, depending on how they're shaped and how they, what their DNA is, what their role is, some of them might have a tube down the middle, right? It might be shaped in just a certain way that allows for certain molecules or substances to get in and out of the cell. Okay. Other proteins might be able to flip within the membrane. Okay, so if it grabs something on the outside of the cell, it might be able to flip. It might be able to flip it inside and then release it and then flip back to the way it was. Okay, it's kind of a cool thing that proteins can do, but they have to be, they're looking for specific substances to move across the membrane. Okay. Another important component, this is a little more than we need to know for this year, but it's good to know what cholesterol is and what it does in our bodies. Cholesterol is something that strengthens our membranes. They actually make them stronger because they make it more flexible. That seems kind of counterintuitive, but cholesterol is another type of lipid, and it kind of hangs out within the hydrophobic area of the membrane, and it provides extra strength in the membrane, kind of holds it together. Without cholesterol, our veins and our cells, the lining of our veins and arteries would get really rigid. So we need cholesterol in our diet. Sometimes we have these carbohydrates hanging out. These serve as an ID badge. They tell other cells and other things in our bodies what kind of cell it is, maybe what kind of virus it has recently encountered. And so these carbohydrates, again, another macromolecule, serve as an ID badge for that cell. That's about all you need to know. That's a little more than you need to know about that, but it's important because you see the role of different macromolecules coming into play in cellular function. And then finally, the phospholipids are the main component, right? See all of these guys lined up next to each other like they're at a rock concert and somebody could body surf over them. Okay, they are packed in tight. They are not rigidly connected to each other. Okay, and then if you expand the view of one phospholipid, you'll see that it has a phosphate head, and this is hydrophilic. This is a lot of review, right? We know that this part is hydrophilic, and the tails, the fatty acid tails, are hydrophobic. So the inside of the cell here and the outside of the cell here, both of these are typically very heavy in water, okay? So the tails tend to point away from the water because they are hydrophobic, and the phosphate heads point towards the water, okay? But that gives them this surface that's created, and this is the membrane. So one thing that we really need to emphasize here is that membranes are selectively permeable, okay? And they are able to be selectively permeable because of the way that they're built. Now, if you think about the word selective, this means you're a little choosy or you're picky. You're not just going to let anybody Like let's say if I'm selective, I'm not going to just date anyone. I'm not going to let just anyone be my friend. I'm going to be careful about who I interact with, right? Permeable means to be able to go through, right? So membranes being selectively permeable, they keep some things out and they allow certain things to go in, okay? The way that the phospholipids are arranged like this means that there's some spaces between them. That allows some smaller molecules like water or oxygen or carbon dioxide gas to go through the membranes, okay? Diffusion can happen. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Proteins, these proteins are selective in which substances they take from the outside of the cell into the inside of the cell, and vice versa. Okay, the way that the cell membrane is built allows for it to be selectively permeable, and that is how membrane structure impacts the function of the membrane, which is to control what goes in and out of the cell, right? We have selective proteins that only allow certain things to go by, and we have small spaces between the phospholipid molecules that will allow smaller substances, but not bigger substances, to get in and out of the cell. Okay, so hopefully that helps you answer that question.